guys, welcome back to Break the Gate podcast. We got Trevor Swenson, who is the owner of Dynamic Talent International. He's also the founder of Masterpass and Agent Life 360. He's a jack of all trades. Trevor, thank you so much for coming on. It's great to have you here. You've got quite a bit of wealth of knowledge of the industry, everywhere from post-hardcore bands to K-pop. It's really cool that we could get you on here and kind of share some of your knowledge to the fellow Break the Gators. I'll come up with a better name eventually, I promise, but that's what I got so far.
It's fun being here, man. Thanks for asking me, Don.
Yeah, absolutely. So we asked the same question. Everybody who comes on, could you go into a little bit about how you got started and what kind of led you to become the CEO, the owner of Dynamic Talent International, and all the different agencies that you were a part of?
Wow, it's gonna be a long podcast.
Yeah, it's okay. We got all night.
I kind of, I tell the story quite a bit. It's fun to tell this story. But so I came, I guess, from the corporate world. Out of college, I went into the nightclub industry, and then I went into the corporate world after that. And once 2008 hit, I left that world, and a very good friend of mine, who's still a great friend of mine, Mark Rizzo from Soulfly of all bands, just called me asking to book a tour for him, and I had no idea what that was. I just knew that I went out with bands for my entire young adult life, and he's just like, hey, try and do this thing for me. So I did it, and I found out, I guess I was kind of good at it, and it kind of stuck. So founded an agency just by myself, and did that for a while. I got the attention of another company, and went and did that company for a while. I'm not going to mention their name. And then decided in 2013 that me and my partner at the time started a company called Artery Global. Started Artery Global, did that whole thing. Ended up purchasing the entire company from my partner at the time, about a year and a half into it. Not even 5 months before the pandemic hit, we rebranded as Dynamic Talent. Because we wanted to just branch out a little bit more, the name Artery, even though it's a fantastic name, was a little bit more stigmaed with the hardcore and the Warped Tour style worlds, which
Sure.
Great, fantastic person. We just wanted to branch out a little bit more different genres, so we rebranded Dynamic Talent. The pandemic hit, and ever since then, we've been growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And it's great. So.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I will say that I think I got introduced to you through Artery Global. I was familiar with a lot of the guys that you guys had as agents. And they also had the Artery Foundation, which was like a Shandan type of thing. And that was a big staple for, like you said, post-hardcore in the 2010, 2012, 14, that era. A lot of people were paying attention to you guys. And so I respect that you were able to kind of take that and say, hey, I think we got something here. Let's do something a little bit more, though, because I don't want to just have this like cookie cutter, company. I want to be able to stand out among the rest because, as you know, with the industry, unless you're constantly moving, you'll get washed up really easily. And then a lot of people will stop paying attention to you. So you have to be able to adapt,
Absolutely.
So yeah. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on, because of your, the different levels that you've gone through. I mean, you kind of started from the very beginning. And I feel like that's how a lot of people start. A lot of people, you think, kind of going in that like, oh, you've got to have a knack for this, you got to have you got to know somebody to know somebody to be able to get into this type of entertainment, but really it's just a lot about just giving your best shot, right?
Well, the nice thing about the way I started was, I've never worked for a major agency before. I've never worked for a major company in the music industry. I kind of paved what I did by myself, and I did have a great team around me, since then, but,
Sure.
I guess I always want bigger. So I just kept moving forward with things and made sure that we did it. Like getting out there, meeting people, going to all the events, trying to,
Yeah.
taking the leap and moving originally where I was from in Wisconsin to moving to
Yep.
California and taking the leap of that. And it's those are steps that you take to do these things, and
Yeah.
it's been a good ride so far. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll get into Wisconsin a little bit later because I am in East Troy right now. So,
nice.
yeah. So you kind of touched a little bit about the responsibilities that you've already dealt with as kind of the founder or the CEO, if you want to call it that, of Dynamic Talent. Could you go into a little bit more of what your day-to-day responsibilities and challenges look like?
Well, the day-to-day responsibilities and challenges are definitely very big right now because
Sure.
the unique position that we're in with all of the new artists that we have, and how busy we are with everything. It's again unique where right now we are in a hiring process to where we're bringing on over 20 new people, which is a huge
Congrats.
undertaking.
Yeah.
We're going through interviews all day long. My daily process is a little unorthodox, I guess. I get up every day about 4:45, and then my day starts with my overseas partners because they're finishing their day.
Sure.
Like they get up, stretch it out, say, just kind of start my day. I usually hit the office desk about 8:30, 8:45, and then I'm into booking, getting my emails cleaned out, making sure we're going there. And then, of course, we do our weekly meetings with our staff, or I'm checking in with my managing director to see what we got on tap for the week or the day. My internal, all my assistants that I have, will kind of tell me what I have to do for that day that I put on my calendar because I
Yeah.
read through my calendar. It's like reading an encyclopedia now. Kind of hash out all the phone calls I have for the day, and just do it from there. So
Yeah.
it's a lot. So I get done with my day. I would usually leave the office about 7 at night. Get home, try and get at least an hour of time with my family, and then it turns into me working with my overseas partners again because they're awake and they're working. So
For sure.
do that. And then I usually get done with my work day about 10:30, 11 o'clock maybe. And then we start all over again.
Yeah. So you talked about, all the different responsibilities you have. How do you maintain a work-life balance? I mean, it sounds like it's kind of minimal and you just kind of whatever balance you can get, you can squeeze in, you just do.
No, I don't. I wouldn't say that. It's essentially what my schedule dictates is what I got to do. I mean, if I'm currently I'm on a plane. I don't know, 2 or 3 days a week, every week. So and then the rest of this year, I'll be in probably 40 different countries, 4 or 5 continents, and I'll be in half the states in America. So it'll be a busy year. So I kind of piece it together. People find a spot in our
Yeah.
schedule, and we do the meeting like this. Is we got this in, and we wanted to make sure we did it, and
Yeah.
it's tough, but and then of course keeping track, of making sure family's important in there and everybody gets time. So it's tough,
Yeah.
but it's all about the expansion and making sure that everything is good and that the clients are happy and all that good stuff. So
Yeah, absolutely. I respect you, man. You're definitely a workhorse. I admire that. Not a lot of guys out there these days are workhorses. It's just kind of like very much of a what's convenient for them type of thing, and you can't really have that mentality if you're trying to expand and do good things and help out your clients. It's just you got to be able to have that like mentality of be on the grind 24/7. That Leo mentality. You know what I mean?
yeah, unfortunately, a terrible reference because of the movie and that person in real life. Is a terrible person, but yes,
Unfortunately.
reference.
Right. So, can you explain the concept behind the Masterpass and how it kind of benefits, artists and speakers? I know that you guys also do speakers as well as part of your clients.
Yeah, so the Masterpass was just pretty much, it's an invention of itself. There's so many VIP companies in the world that do VIP. I'm friends with a good majority of the people that own those companies, and they're all great companies, and they all do a great job. I wanted to create something that was more an in-house setting for me and our clients, and I wanted to make sure that they had access to that for a much lower rate. So like we don't charge much, if anything, for commission that we do it on compared to the big guys, and then um, we service them with their staff, and it's a lot, I guess, more direct. We already have their tours booked,
Sure.
so we load it up in there, we do it for them, and hopefully it's a step that they don't have to worry about anymore. Instead of setting up their own VIPs or going through a secondary company or whatever it may be, or selling
Mm,
them through the promoters and having to monitor them that way. That was
sure.
the concept behind getting that one. So
Okay. It so eliminates a few steps, makes it so much easier, for your clients, and then for the promoters, and then those guys, just kind of a all in one type of shop type thing.
mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that you do, out of many, is Agent Live 360, which is an all-in-one sports agent software, which is interesting because I was surprised that they didn't have that, and that's probably why you thought, or that's probably what got you to make that thought, right? Like, oh, I'm surprised they don't have this yet. What led you to that idea?
So Artery Global expanded into sports years ago, and we
Hmm.
opened up a sports division. So I started looking around when we started opening that up because we use software for the booking side of things, and I wanted to just find out what sports agents use. So I made the round of
Sure.
calls and figured out what everybody was doing, and there was no software for that. So I was like, this is crazy. How can there not be a software? There's companies like Salesforce out there. There's companies like Huddle and all these huge companies that do all this
Sure.
business, but they have never created anything just for sports agents. There's variations that you can do, but it doesn't do everything you're supposed to want to do with it. So
Sure.
I just said, what if I build this thing? I've never built a software
Yeah.
company. I don't know anything about software. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a tech person whatsoever. So I had to figure out
Sure.
how to share my calendar today with somebody on Google. I didn't know how to do that. Um,
Yeah.
but So I reached out and I hired some programmers. They built the software. We delivered it out, and we launched 2 days after the world shut down during the pandemic because I knew everybody would be at home looking at their computer. So we
Mm.
launched out. The company launched with huge success. We went profitable after the fifth week of being open, which is crazy.
Wow, that's great.
And now, again, we're still the only player in the game. 3 years later now, but it's a space that it's very challenging because agents. There's a lot of turnover in the agent world. Um, because these guys spend tons and guys and girls. I apologize. They spend tons and
Sure.
tons of money to get these clients, and sometimes it doesn't always pan out. So we could have you know 5 signups a month. We could have 500 signups a month. It just depends on if things are good or bad in the leagues. So
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you've been able to kind of recognize challenges in the industry and just come up with an idea or multiple ideas of how to overcome them, which seems to be a pretty big trend for you. And I guess that is how people who are forward thinking, in that sense, that's how they think. That's how they adapt to industry. Could you go into a little bit more of some of the challenges that you've faced, in any of those companies, and how you overcome, just to kind of give a better perspective on people who are trying to get into any of the worlds that you're in?
well, the biggest challenge is everybody has the same challenges really. Like staffing is the biggest problem in the world right now because for some reason half the
Sure.
world doesn't want to work, which is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Um,
Right.
and then the people that do want to work, some of them are fantastic, and then some of them just want a paycheck and that's what they want. They want to go home and they're done. Which again,
Yeah.
I'm not doubting any of that. That's why it's great that
Sure.
capitalism exists and we get to go out there and the ones that
Yep.
really hustle do it up. So, but
Yep.
the challenges of it, there's always challenges in software where you bug things or everybody wants something different or you have to expand on it in the booking world. You've got to have that hot roster at all times, and you've got to have the new cool people that work for you, and it
Yeah.
just I've always really tried to instill just doing good business. So if I do good business, I think then that's how you prevail. But
Yep.
everybody always wants more, which is fine. So I guess
Sure.
then,
Yep.
again, more challenges is just evolving with the changing times and the changing world and technology, and then reverting back to your old stuff because the technology will fade sometimes. It's never ending. It's
Yeah.
kind of fun that way. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like, just even based off of anything that I've done in the past, it just seems like there's always going to be a new challenge that you're never going to expect. It's just you have to have that kind of adaptability to say, okay, what are the tools that I've got? Let's rely on my team. Hey, how can we take care of this? And then you kind of just move forward. I mean, does that seem like it's applicable to your scenarios as well?
Yeah, pretty much. You have to just identify the problem, figure out how to fix it, and just go with it. So it's
Sure.
the challenge isn't the challenge. The challenge is how you overcome the challenge. So
I like that. That's the quote of the day.
so
So at the beginning of the podcast, you talked about, how your friend kind of helped you more or less get in the industry by requesting your assistance for booking a tour.
hmm
And that ties into a lot of what we talk about on the podcast. And we had a whole episode on it, was how much networking, in any industry, but especially the entertainment industry, has helped build relationships. Could you go into a little bit about the importance of networking, building your relationships with the entertainment industry and everything you've done?
So, building those relationships, those are always difficult to build because nobody trusts you in the beginning. They don't know who you are.
Sure.
They need to figure out what you're doing, what's going on in the entertainment industry. I'm sure you've heard the Hunter S. Thompson quote a million times. Everybody has. So it's you have to navigate this world and pick out who your friends are going to be, your allies, and all that stuff. So, but back to what you were asking, like I said, when you go to these events or when you go and you get out there and just finally throw caution in the wind and say, I'm doing this, you just got to put yourself out there. And you got to let people know who you are. You don't always let them know what you're doing, but you just let them know who you are and what you got going on a little bit, and that's about it. So,
Yeah.
if you're in a band, you want to get out there and start meeting potential label people. You want to start meeting potential managers. You want to start meeting publicists. And other bands. Other bands is essentially, hey, you get on a lot of tours these days too. It's all, everybody wants to be friends and friendly. So in our world, it's we go to there's usually 4 events a year that they all center around, but they're very, very expensive events to go to. So
Sure.
But if you take the leap and you go, you meet a lot of cool people and make some good relationships. So
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the events that you guys participate in for these networking?
you can go to Polestar, which that's
Sure.
usually in February everywhere. You can go to
Mm-hmm.
ILMC, which is in London. You can go to IFF, which is in London. You can go to AIBA, which is in Nashville.
Okay.
If you're bands, then you can go to like NAMM. You can go to those type of things.
Sure.
There's quite a few things, but in the agents world, it's pretty niche on what you get to go to that everybody gets to meet up. Everybody used to go to South by Southwest, but that kind of fell off after it got super corporate. Which again, it's still a fantastic festival and it's one of the biggest, and they do a great job there. But I haven't been to South by in probably 6-7 years now. So
Yeah, I have noticed that because I noticed that a lot of people, like you said, we're going, to South by as a networking thing. They did a lot of showcases, for different industries, and they still do now. But I agree with you. It does seem like it's a little more corporate structured. There's not as much kind of networking necessarily going on between, consumer and provider. It's very much of a, let's just try to make this as big of an event as possible. And not to knock what they're doing a fantastic job. But I definitely agree with you that it seems like there's still, there's other events that people could take advantage of. I mean, Launch is a good one as far as an artist is concerned. Launch is a good way to kind of network with some of the industry guys, and they usually do a panel, of like 5 or 6 people, and they get people, they've had like Kevin Lyman, of Warped Tour. They've Mike Superi of SJC Drums. They've had a bunch of different people, and it's a good way to kind of figure out who's who more or less in the industry.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess what the angles that you're looking at, and I appreciate the questions, but like what angles are
Sure.
you looking at for bands to get discovered, or is this just a more generality thing, or what do you feel?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. It's because our audience is typically somebody who's in a band or somebody who is, just trying to get into the entertainment industry and they're not really sure how, So I'm kind of looking at it at both ends, which is why I asked the agent stuff, and then I brought up the launch for bands.
Yeah, the bands definitely wouldn't fit in at the agent stuff that they would go to. The best place for bands to get discovered or to start doing stuff is the new cool thing that's resurging again is house shows. It's awesome. Like,
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
house shows are just crushing right now, and because the
Sure.
little venues in the country just are struggling to fill their calendars because there's not a lot of local bands anymore. There just aren't.
Right.
And local bands are struggling to be like, hey, okay, it's a pay to play situation where I got to jump on for this band, or do I have a real shot of touring? These kids that are throwing these house shows are just crushing right now because it's that old hardcore style thing, like back in even like 96, 94, like, I mean, I've got DOD, and DOD was doing house shows in the 80s. So,
Sure.
I mean, that's the cool thing right now, to go out there, and if you can find people that'll come out and discover you that way, that's an awesome way to get content and build your portfolio. It's just crushing out a house show. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember, my start into the local scene was like church shows, $5 church shows, house shows, those random, random ass venues that people just found and they're like, let's just do something here, that type of thing. And it's usually like some kind of weird back alley somewhere, But yeah, I think it's the organicness of it, I think is what's killing it, Yeah, so you just to kind of segue into the K-pop side, and we talked about this a little bit before offline. You've been involved in bringing K-pop over to the U.S., including some of their first tours and shows on American soil. Can you go into a little bit of the process plotting that, and how you got involved with that?
Well, I mean, I'll give credit where credit is due. The reason I got involved with it is because of my very good friend Adam. He plugged me into it, and then I got plugged into it with my very good friends that are now my Korean partners. I've been honored to be able to be a part of this entire genre. So, like, we're doing crazy things with these bands, and we're bringing over hundreds of them now, which is just, it's amazing to think about that, because 5-6 years ago, I had no idea what K-pop was. Didn't even know. So,
Sure.
And now we're doing all kinds of business with it. So, but the process of it, it's very similar to your standard rock bands, or even like pop singer bands, where you're establishing the routing, making sure you get the guarantees correct, getting the venues picked out right, setting up the marketing, doing all that, coordinating with management, and then of course getting ready and going on sale, and then monitoring everything correctly. The process itself can be simple. There's a lot more detail in the background, but it's just a lot of it. So, and we have a lot of tours that are going out through the rest of this year and next year, and even the year after. So it's a big time.
It sounds like there's
so.
Right. It sounds like there's a little bit of development in there too, of bringing people over, who may not necessarily have the attention that they got, in Korea. You know what I mean?
True.
Does it seem like
I
that?
mean, a little bit. So, like, some of these bands are freshly debuted. Debuted means essentially exactly what it means. They just became a band. And 3 or 4 months later, they come into America. Or one of the bands that we brought over had been a band for 11 years, and that was the first time they'd ever come over to America. Or it just depends on that. And for them to learn how to tour in America, it's a huge learning curve, because touring where they're from, it's usually 1 or 2 shows a year in Korea, or they go to Southeast Asia, or they go to Japan. So,
sure. Yeah, I feel like that's a weird transition for a lot of international markets. I mean, it's, even Europe. Europe. Usually you get maybe 10 shows. Maybe a little bit more. Most times less. But then when you come over to the States, you could get anywhere between 20, 25. You could double that, right? I mean, that's quite a big jump. In shows, and you have to have that mental. What's the word I'm looking for? Diligence, almost, to not get exhausted.
I mean, it's diligence, yeah, but it's more capacity of being able to take that much pressure.
That was the word I was looking for. Yeah.
Like you're wanting to, control, the narrative of what you've been doing, and you get burned out on this super fast. Like, and these kids, some of these kids are 17, 18 years old, so they're, and then you got the rock bands that you guys deal with, or the other genres. Like, it's tough, and the road's tough. Like, there's not a lot of money out there to be made right now because the expenses are so high. The price of gas.
Right.
If you stay at a hotel, finding a hotel for cheaper than $200 a night these days is almost impossible. And
yep.
Even buying a van, cheap van's still 60, 70 grand. So like,
yep,
it's tough, and I sympathize with a lot of these kids that are starting out in the business right now, because every band and every era that has been a new band or new wave band, there's always expensive stuff that's out there, but right now things are crazy expensive. Like, even buying gear, guitar's what, $2,500, $3,000. So
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
So like,
yeah, even string prices, something as like little as that has gone up. It's crazy.
That's why I send all my friends to Jimmy Dunlop. So Dunlop's.
Oh yeah.
Little plug for everybody.
I was gonna say, was that a plug? Kudos, I like it. That's cool, man. Yeah. So, as someone who's interested in getting into the entertainment industry, we talked about this a little bit, having kind of the drive, the perseverance. What are some of the other skills and qualities you think is essential for somebody to kind of be successful?
I'm gonna say something that's really bad, but
we're here for it.
It's more of a warning. So,
okay,
if you want to get in the music industry, just don't. Like, I mean, I want you to get in the industry. I want you to come do this. But you have to think long and hard. This is not something you just rush into, because this is an industry that will eat you alive. Like, start out on the touring cruise. Like, go, if you're not in a band, then start on the cruise. Making $25 a day, sleeping on a floor, eating ramen noodles in a van. Like, start there, because if you have not experienced that, you're never going to appreciate what you did on the way up. And I hate to admit this, I wasn't one of those people. Like, I got into it a little bit differently than everybody else, but the people that come into it now need to experience all levels of what the music industry holds, or else it's very difficult, because you don't know what the other facets of this world are. So to get into it, though, there is no college that can teach you how to do this. There is no school that teaches you this stuff on the road. You have to go out there and do it yourself. You've got to go out there. You got to mingle it up, mix it up, go to shows, go see as many artists that you want to. Could be bands, could be pop music, doesn't matter what it is. But you have to experience and figure out why you want to do this, because this is a lifelong thing. And if you're in it for the money, you're in the wrong industry. So like, the money comes and goes real quick in this industry. So you want to make sure that if you're doing this, it's a passion project for at least the first 10 years. So
yeah, absolutely. We had a guy named Mike Henneberger on. He is he owns his own company now called a burger joint. And there's my friend plug. And he had worked for a ton of different companies as freelance, whether it was Comedy Central, he worked for Vice, he worked for Billboard, he did all these different companies. And he told me one day, he said that he got an Emmy, and then 2 weeks later he was bagging groceries. He said, because of how volatile the entertainment industry is, you have to constantly be working hard in order to stay relevant. He said, otherwise there's no way to be in it. It's just, you have to be prepared for that, and because for a lot of people, that's a soul crushing thing. That's I'm not good enough. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to stick to staying, bagging groceries. And now he owns his own company, and he produces content for some of the biggest companies in the country. So it's very much what you said. You have to just know you want to do it. It can't be about the money.
Yep, I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tough industry, and I've seen people come and go, a lot over the years. It's all about tenacity. It's all about drive and ambition. It's all about hearing the word no, can't, and don't. You're going to hear that a lot. So just figure out how to get around those three things, and you'll be good.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, just a minor amounts. You talked about staying kind of updated on the trends. How do you do that? We've got especially these days with all the different content out there, content platforms out there between TikTok, Reels. How do you guys kind of stay updated with all the trends moving forward with some of your clients?
So we get our weekly reports on radio reports. We get our weekly reports on, our streaming reports. We get TikTok reports. We go over all that stuff. And then I just turn on YouTube and I turn on Spotify and I just hit random and I just let it find me.
Okay.
I try not to program an algorithm on YouTube and Spotify so it'll just find music because
Sure.
once you listen to a certain genre, or if you like search a song, or if you want to listen to Korn, and then all of a sudden it's going to find you 60 bands that sound like Korn. So if you don't
Right.
search anything, you just say new music, and it'll hopefully spiral through on its algorithm, and it'll find you something. But
Yeah.
that's essentially what it is. Like where you can look at every chart in the books, but until you go out there and do your research on it, see what their analytics are, if they've ever toured, or if they've got this thing. There's this new band I just discovered, like 3 days ago, and I've never heard of them. And I said, this is like the best thing I've heard in like 3 years. And I'm not.
What's the name of the band?
I don't know if I should plug them because
Yeah.
I want to plug them because they're great.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't book
Maybe
them
too
in.
early.
No, they're on the radio, which is great. But I don't book them.
Oh, okay.
But like, it's kind of refreshing to see this because I didn't see it first, which is again super refreshing. And I know other people have been pumping it, but I took the chance. I listened to it, and I was like, "Man, this is great. This is a great record."
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't care. So that band Let Me Suffer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Fucking great.
I've heard of them.
That band's great.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
I mean, like,
they're really blowing up.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. Like but I never gave it a shot. Like at first, and I listened to it, I was like, "This is a great record." I bought the record. I don't buy records. I bought it. So
yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I just said, "This is good, man." So, it's just interesting that there's new bands coming out. Like the K-pop world. I bought my first K-pop record a few months ago, and I don't buy K-pop records, so it's
sure, yeah.
There's a lot of, if a band really wows you, then it's just definitely cool to have. So.
Yeah, absolutely. On the YouTube algorithm thing, what is it with? Because as a consumer standpoint, I usually listen to YouTube when I'm at work. Especially if like I have a podcast, I'll do like the Bertcast or something, or Two Bears One Cave. I don't know if you're listening to any of those, but with live music, it always seems to pop up a live performance after a couple of songs. And I don't know why. Maybe that's just my algorithm, but I never go out of my way to pull up a live performance of a band. But for whatever reason, after a couple songs, it goes straight to that. I don't know if that's a YouTube push or my algorithm's all jacked up, but it just seems really weird that that's the choice.
I don't know. I have no clue what the algorithm is, but like I would assume that you at some point typed in a live song, or somebody sent you a live song and you played it on your phone or played it on the
maybe.
And then now it's like, he likes live music, so we're going to play that and pop it every now and then. So.
That is possible because I do listen to Jam in the Van.
Mm-hmm.
And they are technically live because they're in the van. So maybe that's where it's coming from, but it's not something I want to do all the time. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's just an observation, I guess.
For sure. Yeah. So, whenever I do podcasts now, like I get randos, I've discovered my favorite podcast. I guess I didn't discover it through random, but like, I throw some stuff out there and some stuff is cool that pops up. So, but yeah.
Sure. What podcast did you recently found?
Not that I've recently found. The only one that I listen to religiously anymore is This Is Important.
This Is Important? That sounds familiar.
It's the guys from Workaholics.
Okay, that's probably why it sounds
Yeah.
familiar. I will have to check that out.
It's the funniest thing you've ever listened to because they literally talk about nothing but like, you know.
Is this the behind the scenes workaholics thing?
No, this is just it's
No?
the four guys sitting there just talking about stupid shit. It's great.
Okay, that sounds right up my alley.
They just did. They actually just did their first live taping. Where was it? It was in L.A. It might have been at the El Rey Theater. They sold it out. So
Okay, wow, yeah, that seems to be the new thing with podcasts is live tapings.
yeah.
You know, I consider doing that here at there's a venue called X-Ray Arcade out of Milwaukee. I considered talking to those guys about doing some kind of like a showcasing event. Where we did like a live podcast and had a couple guests on and people could ask questions from the audience. Because I feel like it's a really good way to engage with people that a lot of people aren't doing, but maybe they're onto something here.
So, a couple questions for you. Like, just this is maybe it's a reversal thing, but like,
Sure.
So being from Wisconsin, both of us.
Yep.
What is the hardest thing that your viewership, which I don't know if you're more of a national viewership or your listenership, or is it more Wisconsin based or are you national based?
Yeah, so we're not national quite yet. We do have a few randoms here and there, but a lot of it is regional, Wisconsin based.
So what is your viewership if you're getting questions from most people? What are they finding that's the hardest to get discovered in? Because Wisconsin's a tough state to get discovered in. Unless you're like the violent femmes. So
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, it's what you mentioned earlier a little bit is getting the attention of people.
Mhm.
And then also figuring out what is the right move to start to get into the entertainment industry. Is it, for a person who's not necessarily a musician, but just loves, going to shows, is it, working as a promoter at our local venue, or is it, going on the road with their buddy's band, stuff like that. And then for the artist perspective, it's, do I approach the manager or the booking agent, or, should I send them songs, or should I wait for them to come to me? And and the other part of it too is programming, for TV shows and movies. And we had a music supervisor on here, and we answered questions about how to get their music on TV. Because a lot of people don't understand that that's a big concept of being able to kind of stay afloat as a musician. You can do that as a producer. You can distribute your music through different music. What's that?
CD Baby, or you can go on.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yep. And you can get them in front of music supervisors, and you can make a sustainable living that way too if you're doing it right and doing it smart and you're consistent. So we had brought in Jenny Armand, who is a music supervisor for she works under Squeaky Clean Studios now, but she was a freelance one before. But anyway, so we answered a lot of those questions on how to get their songs on TV, essentially, how to approach a music supervisor, and you can find that some of the approaches are different depending on who you're going to. If you're going to a promoter and you want to book a show, sure, you can send their music, as a WAV file and, do a brief introduction. But as a music supervisor, they prefer you to send like a Dropbox link with all your stems, because if you send your music, that's what everybody's going to be doing too. And it locks down their email, and it becomes frustrating. And, a lot of people don't want to work with that, so there's different avenues to it.
So question about that. Like, so if you send your stems over and you're an undiscovered band, your songs aren't ISRC registered then though. So technically those aren't your songs if you send them anymore.
That's a good comment. Yeah, absolutely. I think that the whole idea was to be able to kind of prove that you own what you've got, and that you are providing options for them to use, versus to provide legitimacy of ownership. You know what I mean? Through a legal way of like that. Because yeah, sure, you can. You could just pull music and then submit it to somebody, but they want to be able to see that you actually have the rights. And then that was the other thing too that she mentioned is showing rights, and then also providing multiple options for usage, because a lot of people just send one song, but if they have a scene that they just want to set the mood, but they don't want vocals behind it, then they could just use your instrumentals, and that's kind of what she was getting at,
Gotcha. So what tips are you giving your listenership of how to make themselves revenue without touring? Have you done that yet? I'm interested in it
Yeah.
because I love telling
Yeah,
people how to
no.
make money and not have to go on tour, because everybody thinks going on
Sure.
tour makes money. Usually you lose
Yeah.
money when you go on tour these days. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Honestly, personally speaking, I don't have a ton of knowledge on it, which is why I bring other people to provide the knowledge for me. And that's just me being completely frank. I mean, I have a decent amount of knowledge just from, being in and out of the industry a little bit, but I'm not doing it on a regular basis to be able to stay with what's current, on the best ways to monetize. I will say though that the programming for TV and movies has been the new thing for monetizing music. A lot of people are there's a lot more content out there. There's a lot more platforms for content. So in hindsight, there's also a lot more opportunity. And with that, becomes monetization, and then then you got to figure out, do I go to directly to a music supervisor? Do I go through a distributor of some sort? Somebody who, basically owns a bunch of libraries, and then they just pitch whatever the supervisor is looking for in terms of mood. It's the navigation of that is what, we're trying to provide for them in that particular component.
gotcha.
What's the best move for them, based off of their situation.
So just a tip that I can give everybody like that is, the sync deals like you're talking about, those are great. But,
Mm-hmm.
sync, like you're going against 60,000 other bands that have the same
Exactly.
guitar tone that they're going to use for that 4 seconds of film that they're trying to put it into.
Sure.
Like, because bands call me all the time, like, hey, how do I get discovered? How do I do this? And I go, why do you want to get discovered? I said,
Yeah.
if you haven't been discovered after you've released a record and you tried to tour and do all this stuff, if some label hasn't found you or some manager that hasn't found you that's really putting it into you,
Yeah.
then it kind of falls back on you to go do this work now. So, and there's a way to make money off of that. Like, again, not again, but the platforms everybody knows about is what everybody should be focusing on: YouTube, Spotify, Twitch, TikTok. Those 4 are going to make you a living because those are constant. It's not just like one and done where, get a monetized YouTube page, start putting your music up there, start loading content.
Sure.
That shouldn't cost you anything because everybody has an iPhone to make this stuff on.
Right.
Spotify, share the link with your friends and see if you can get added to playlists. If you have a cool song and you get added to playlists, 1 million streams a month is a living to people. You don't have to go to work because you're getting paid $2,500, $3,000 a month off 1 million streams.
Right, absolutely.
Twitch, start doing Twitch events. Start doing debuted songs on Twitch for 50 cents. Like if people are bitching about 50 cents, they shouldn't be your fans anyways. It's 50 cents.
Right, right.
Like these are things that can monetize everything they're doing, and it costs you nothing as a band. Like going and buying a $70,000 van to go tour, that's a lot of money. Don't do that. Go spend $100 getting a light ring or whatever to film yourself doing stupid stuff. And I mean, whatever it is.
Sure.
And then put your songs on TikTok and make sure it's always that. Like, there's a great band out there that I'm very good friends with these guys. This band Rivals. I don't know if you know who they are.
I do. Yeah.
So Kaylee was debating on giving up on the entire music industry itself. Like, she came out of the pandemic and it sounded like it wasn't working for her. And then all of a sudden she just started doing TikTok and she just exploded. And now the band, they're streaming, they're doing all this stuff because she just put herself out there. She's fantastic at it. So,
well, she's going to school now too. She's continuing that as a backup, which is smart. But no, I remember that because I've been Facebook friends with her for quite a while, and I remember Rivals as as a little band out of California. I think they're in.
They originally started California, but I mean, she lives in Nashville and stuff like that. So,
Nashville, okay, but and I remember them blowing up, and that same thing you were just talking about. It's defining the realization that there are platforms that you could utilize to monetize, and I think too some of the other components that is there, and I've had other managers on that have talked about. Not always depending on platforms, but being more dependent on the content of the stuff that you're putting out, or the quality of the stuff that you're putting out. Because a lot of people will will spend $200 on, just, mixing and mastering their song with somebody who just does it out of their garage, and then is spending hundreds of dollars on marketing campaigns through all these guys that are saying, oh, we can get you 1 million streams. You know what I mean? So it's
those are cons, and it sucks.
exactly.
It sucks that those people are out there because there's so many of them out there, and a lot of people have made a lot of big money on those cons.
Yep.
So, but
Right.
you can't teach everybody to not get conned. I mean, people get conned when they're 82 years old and get a phone call that says, you got to give me, $6,000 in Target, gift cards.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
It's all about knowledge, and I hope anybody that's listening just realizes that you go back to the question of how do you keep evolving and how do you stick with it. It's just you have to be tenacious, and if you want to be in the music industry, this is the stuff you have to do. But those four things will make you money without anybody getting in your own way. You're your own worst enemy at that point because you're just putting out content.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And staying consistent too seems to be the big factor. Paying attention to those algorithms a little bit on the back end, because Facebook will tell you, hey, this is when your audience is most active. You should post during these times. Sure, Facebook's not always right, but if you've got the tools in front of you, maybe take a little bit of attention towards that, because it doesn't hurt to use the platform to the best of its capability, and that's all goes for all platforms. Would you agree with that, or would you say that find your own structure?
I would agree with it, but there's also an untapped resource that's out there for the thing that originally got invented for that. And everybody's going to get mad at me for saying this, but I don't care. People aren't using OnlyFans the way it was invented for. Like OnlyFans, and everybody thinks, okay, it's a bunch of naked people, whatever. That's what it is.
Sure.
But OnlyFans was invented for people that wanted to be fans of these people, and bands are not utilizing the platform that was invented for this. You can load stuff up there. You don't have to get naked. You can just, go have fun. And if people want to pay for your content, it's way better than Patreon, I think.
Sure.
And it's a platform. There's a bunch of other stuff that's on there that some people might think is inappropriate. Some people might love it. Doesn't matter. But OnlyFans was created because of OnlyFans. They're trying to do this, so you can sell your music on there. It works. So
I think that's interesting that you brought that up, because there's a comedian that I like, Chelsea Lynn, and she uses OnlyFans as a way to connect with her audience just as much as she uses Patreon, because, and maybe there's a little bit of in good nudity, type of thing, but it's not like she's intentionally doing it. It's just part of some of the content because that's her stick, that's some of the things that she enjoys doing. But she's been able to expand her audience that way. So it's really interesting that you brought that up, because it is absolutely true. I've seen people use it, and if you're doing it right, it goes very well for them. So yeah. So going back a little bit into kind of the booking and the managing of things for artists, for somebody who's just trying to, not necessarily, artistic and in a sense where they could pick up an instrument and play, but somebody who is just fascinated about the business behind it. Could you share some insights on the process and of managing artists and booking them, or I guess, talking to promoters on behalf of them?
Yeah, it's a big question.
It is a big question.
It's kind of a very broad.
We can separate into two if you want.
It's a broad stroke question. So, you can take it by pieces. Managing clients, that's a big step, because, there's a lot of ego in the music industry. There's a lot of, people that want, things that aren't necessarily always available to them, or that they feel that they're deserved on, and maybe they're not at that point in their career where they're deserved on that. So you have to navigate those challenges, and then you also have to navigate, potential management people that you're dealing with. And you have to make sure that you show that all of your clients are priority one, because they don't like feeling like they're not priority one. So you have to make sure that happens too. Dealing with the venues, it just depends. You have to, again, it's the same thing. You have to treat the 300 capacity coffee room club the same as you treat an arena and stadium buyer.
Sure.
It's just people being people to each other, right? I'm still trying to work out this question because it's such a big question.
I know.
It's
I always save the best because this is one of the last questions.
Oh, it's all
I was
good.
trying to save the best for last.
It's all good. So, but
Yeah.
navigating that, you gotta divvy time. When you ask me about my day, you have to divvy time to make sure you're keeping relationships with everybody on your roster, checking in on people. The bands that may be struggling, or the clients that may be struggling, you got to check in on them, see if they're doing stuff, and offering the ideas that we just spoke about, or
Sure.
saying, hey, how are things here? Or have you talked to any labels? Have you, what are you working on in music? Can we listen to it and see what you got going on there? Or if you're in the middle of the process of selling the tour off, you got to make sure you're keeping up the relationships with everybody, because at any given point, as of like today, I'm selling 23 tours just today. So like I'm dealing with all this and, trying to navigate that while I have other tours on sale. It's a huge process to do all this
Sure.
stuff. So,
Yeah.
but, I guess in a roundabout question that kind of answers things, but you're asking
Yep.
you're asking more of process, like maybe how to book. I don't remember. So
Yeah. Process on a superficial level, not necessarily you talk to the agent. This is how it happens. Because I think a lot of people kind of generally understand that that's usually how it goes. I guess I meant more of a superficial overhead way of doing it.
Yeah.
What are some of the bigger things that you have to do first? And I think part of that question was going to be a segue, was how do you figure out what a band is worth in terms of guarantee? Because even as a local band, that's a big question. They're trying to figure out is, when do I start asking for money and how much?
That's a great question, actually. And we were debating on that, no joke, like 3 weeks ago. And so to find the value of a local band is nearly impossible. And
Sure.
the reason is because local bands don't draw anybody but their family and friends. That's what they draw.
Right.
You could debate on it until you're blue in the face. They could say, oh, we draw 50 people. No, you don't. You draw your parents, you draw your girlfriends, you draw your boyfriend.
Yeah.
That's what you draw. But that's not a bad thing. The problem is half those people don't pay for the show anyways. They're there just to support you because they're in the room. So the problem that I have with local bands I'm trying, and this is a problem that's happened since the beginning of local bands, is a cover band can make $1,000 that is just playing Toby Keith songs, which is great. That's what they're supposed to do. And a local band that plays originals and put the work in and recorded that thing and put the record out is worth $20, which sucks to say that, but
yeah,
that's the world that we live in. Once a band draws real 50 to 100 people, that's when you can start asking for money.
Okay. How do you track that, though? I mean, do you just kind of head count? Do you ticket sales, or
pulled doors?
What's the best way to approach that?
Pulled doors are great to have. If you can get the club to pull doors, say, who are you here to see? Is it XYZ band, or is it this band? Whatever it is, that's a great way to check it out. They've been doing pulled doors in LA for, I think, forever. Asking for a guarantee, even as a local band, I think is a mistake.
Okay.
I think you should play as long as you possibly can off door deals or door splits, because you will make way more money than having a guarantee. And a guarantee, in my mind, on the lower level of things, will make you stagnant in your growth. Because if you know you're making $500, you're going to walk in that room and be like, that's what I'm making, $500.
Yeah.
If you know you can go out and tell 2 more people or 3 more people, come check out my show, come check this out, and you can make that extra $300 or $400, and you walk with almost $1,000, you're gonna still keep working. That's but you're also gonna get depressed when nobody shows up and you don't get paid. But hopefully that inspires you to go out there and keep promoting your stuff.
What about doing something like a versus deal?
Versus is great, a small guarantee, maybe $100, and then if you're a bunch of drunks like us in Wisconsin, then you say, I'll take a bar tab or something like that.
Sure.
But to me, I love door deals for people that do it, and I'm not a promoter. I'm an agent. It actually hurts me not having a guarantee because of the commission we would collect off of it. But I think for an inspirational aspect, if you can go out there for a door deal and crush, and some local band draws 500 people, and you end up walking out with $5,000, That's a great day.
Yeah.
I would never want to leave my home state. Look at Seven
Right.
Dust. Seven Dust used to crush. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, Madison, Wisconsin was their second biggest market in America, which makes no sense to me still.
Yeah.
But like, that's what they did. They built their local market. They got discovered, started touring. That's what it was. So, you know,
Yeah.
these kids that are doing it in Milwaukee area or Madison or wherever anybody's listening, Chicago,
Yep.
like, build your local market. You know, you don't always want to play at Paps. You got to go, you know, find these other venues and stuff like that.
Sure.
And, you know, if you're a true local band, never play more than one show a month in your actual hometown.
Yep.
And once you start drawing at least over 100 or 200 people, never play more than once every 6 months. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of the advice that I give too on a very, you know, minor level when somebody does ask me those types of questions is, especially in terms of trying to tour, stick to regionals, you know, first, you know, do exactly what you just said, you know, and try to expand your audience in the region first, you know, because then once you start going out, it's like a radiation effect. It seems like, you know, you start more and more people start to seem to pick up that you're playing music and they're enjoying what you're doing. And then you're using all your platforms to your best, of your abilities. But if you really focus on regional stuff, at the very least, you'll have a sustainable career off of that. Even if you can't expand to, you know, doing an East Coast tour if you are a West Coast band. Does that seem like you agree with that? Or do you feel like it's different depending on the person?
It sounds fine. You know, it'll work. Again, there's different formulas for every band that's out there, depending where it is. And
sure.
I use somewhat local to you, you know, Cheap Trick. Like, they were worth nothing in America, but they were worth stadiums in Japan.
Sure.
So how does that make sense? Of course, that was in the 70s, a little different time though, but there's bands like that nowadays that, like, over in London, they'll draw, you know, 6,000 people, and they come to America and they can't draw 6 people. So
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you even know that they're not going to draw without trying? You just take a chance.
I mean, well, we have K-pop bands that we know in South America will do 4,000 tickets, and we know the moment they cross the border into America that they're going to do probably 500-600 tickets. So we don't bring them here. Like,
yeah,
you just look at the analytics of it. You know, when it comes to a rock band, though, like, it's streaming numbers. If you get streaming reports, that's why Spotify is so good. Like, they'll tell you what town people are listening to you in, you know, and the number of people that listen to you there. You know, it's a great tool to have. That's why I tell everybody, like, either direct everybody to Spotify, or you can get a geo cache too on YouTube. You can all of them. Like, they'll all tell you exactly what people are listening to, and if those are the people that you want your audience to be, great, go build that audience. So,
okay, I'll get. Oh, you're gonna say something?
No, just taking a break.
Okay. I'll get one more question out there, and then I'll let you go. It's been a really good conversation. This is definitely one of the longer ones I've done, but I would love to have you on again because I love this, like, back and forth and just getting each other's, you know, ideas and you asking me questions. You know, that's something that's never happened before. But I like that.
Local
can
Wisconsin
you share?
Is doing it, man.
Yep, exactly. Can you share a story or experience that kind of stands out to you as your turning point in your career or significant milestone of some sort?
Wow, that's a good question.
That's why it's the last one.
So I'll give you one, and I'm going to give credit again where credit is due on this one.
Sure.
So I'd been in the industry for a few years, and I, you know, struggling it out. You know, I'd made a little bit of money, nothing crazy, and I got a wrong phone call one day. Somebody called me. I'll even mention who it was. Ron Opaleski called me from William Morris. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you know Ron is. He's fantastic.
I'm familiar with the name. I don't know him outside of the name.
He represents Shinedown and a bunch of other active rock bands.
Sure.
And, he's a very, very good and very well-liked guy in the industry.
Yeah.
Anyway, calls me up one day, and he's going to kill me that I'm telling the story publicly, but whatever. He goes, "Hey, I'm interested in XYZ band for this tour we're putting together." I'm like, "Okay." I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, "All right." I'm like, "I don't book this band." And he's like, "Yeah, you know, we're putting together a new Five Finger Death Punch tour." And I was like, "Oh." And I I didn't realize they had changed agents at the time. I mentioned I didn't know who Ron Opaleski was when he called me. I didn't even know who William Morris was when he called me. So that's how new I was in the industry.
Yeah.
And I just did the thing where I said, well, that band's not available, but I got this band that's available right now.
Yeah.
And he listened to it or whatever, and calls me. He goes, let me call you back in 20 minutes. Calls me back 20 minutes later. He goes, hey, you got an offer in your inbox right now for this band for the first Five Finger Death Punch Arena tour ever. So that was a great day. So we confirmed the tour, and I tell people the story, and they're going nuts about it. And the band, which the band I don't even know exists anymore, but they're going crazy. They're having a great time. Their label's all excited about it. And I think the defining moment in my career was we were at the Palladium in LA, which I am a huge fan of. The reason of this is, I don't know if you know the history of the Palladium, but
no, not that much, no.
So then I get to fill you in. So the very first artist ever to play the Palladium in LA was Frank Sinatra. And
really?
That's huge. The guy opened it, the very first night it ever opened. And I'm standing in this room, and it was beautiful, it was sold out, it was great. And I'm like, okay, now I'm in the music industry. So I'm standing here, and I'm mingling with some of the biggest agents and some of the biggest managers, and all these label people are there. And I'm like, all right, now I really want to do this. And and then I moved to California 3 weeks later.
Wow. Yep. That's amazing.
There you go. That's the story.
I'd like to get somebody on from William Morris. I think that they've got a lot of talented guys on that team or in that company. I mean, it's huge now, but yeah, I think it could be really cool to get another perspective on the entertainment, because they do actors too, and they do music, actors, right? Sports, they do music, sports, everything. And then
they have Endeavor, the other side, that does like the UFC and WWE and all kinds of stuff like that, and PBR,
right? Yeah, we just had Joe Martinez on from the UFC announcer. We had him on, and his episode just released on Monday. Super good guy. I'd love to get more UFC guys. I mean, the way that he made it sound, it seemed like a lot of the guys over there were really nice to work with. I mean, you still get a few dicks every now and then, but that's part of the business. Some guys are just naturally like that, but for the most part, it seems like it was very much family oriented, type of structure, business to work with, but yeah. So anyway, without further ado, Trevor, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate all the insight. Like I said, we'll do this again, and maybe we could just do a kind of an open conversation type thing without structured, questions, and we can just kind of get in the nitty gritty of things, and just like to get your thoughts on other things, and maybe you can poke more questions at me on, on my opinions and that kind of thing. So
absolutely, man, no problem. So thanks for having me on. It's been great.